Welcome back to Think and Speak podcast, where thinking clearly helps you speak confidently. I'm Emma Collins, and across from me is the man who turns everyday English into a powerful tool, Mr. Daniel Miller.
Thank you, Emma. Today's episode is all about daily English conversations, the kind you use at work, with friends, and in real-life situations where fluency truly matters.
This isn't textbook English. This is modern, natural, and practical English. The kind people actually use in meetings, messages, and meaningful conversations.
Exactly. If you've ever known the grammar but felt stuck finding the right words, this episode is for you. We're going to show you how better thinking leads to better speaking.
And before we dive in, let's make this interactive. If you want to speak English with confidence like this video right now, tells us you're serious about improving.
And leave a comment. Tell us where you're watching from or one English phrase you want to master. We read every comment, and your engagement helps this lesson reach learners around the world.
Stay with us. By the end of this episode, your daily English will feel clearer, sharper, and more natural than ever. Daniel, many English learners say, I know the words, but I can't express my thoughts clearly. In daily conversations, what is the connection between thinking patterns and speaking fluently? How can learners train their minds to think in English instead of translating from their native language? Please explain this in a practical, modern way, especially for real-life conversations at work or social settings, where speed and clarity really matter.
That's an excellent question, Emma, because fluency begins long before you open your mouth. The real issue isn't vocabulary, it's cognitive processing. Many learners translate mentally, which creates delays, hesitation, and unnatural sentence structure. From a grammar perspective, this happens because learners rely too heavily on their first language's syntax. English has a relatively fixed word order, subject plus verb plus object, and when you think in another language, you often rearrange ideas before speaking. For example, instead of saying naturally, I'll get back to you tomorrow, a learner might pause and produce something like, tomorrow I to you will respond, because they're translating. To think better in English, learners must shift from word-based thinking to chunk-based thinking. Chunks are commonly used phrases such as, that makes sense, I'm not sure about that, or let me think about it. These are called formulaic expressions, and native speakers rely on them constantly. When you store language in chunks, you reduce cognitive load and increase fluency. Another key concept is functional language, English used for a specific purpose. For instance, at work, you don't need complex grammar, you need clarity. Compare. I would like to kindly request your assistance regarding this matter versus, could you help me with this? The second is shorter, more modern, and more natural. A practical training method is inner narration. Describe your actions in English silently. I'm opening my laptop. I need to reply to this email. This meeting starts at 10. This builds automaticity, which is the ability to produce language without conscious grammar analysis. Finally, learners must accept imperfection. Fluency grows through communicative competence, not grammatical perfection. If your message is clear, your English is working. Think in meaning, not in rules. When your thinking becomes simpler and more direct, your speaking follows naturally.
Daniel, daily conversations often include small talk, opinions, and quick responses. Many learners sound either too formal or too simple. How can English learners sound natural, polite, and confident at the same time when expressing opinions or responding in modern conversations?
This is a classic challenge, Emma. Learners often choose between sounding correct and sounding natural, but modern English requires both. The solution lies in register awareness, understanding the level of formality appropriate to the situation. Let's start with opinions. Instead of strong absolute statements like, this is wrong, or I disagree, modern English prefers softening language. This uses modal verbs, adverbs, and discourse markers. For example, I might be wrong, but from my perspective, I'm not completely convinced that. These phrases reduce confrontation and sound thoughtful. Grammatically, this involves modal verbs such as might, could, and would, which express possibility rather than certainty. Compare. You are wrong versus, I think there might be another way to see this. The second sounds polite, confident, and emotionally intelligent. In small talk, Learners often underestimate the power of phatic communication, language used to build relationships rather than share information. Phrases like, "How's your week going?" or "That's interesting" may seem simple, but they are socially powerful. Another tool is intonation and rhythm. English confidence is not only about words but about stress patterns. Stressing content words, nouns, main verbs, adjectives, make speech sound more natural. For example, "I really like that idea." This emphasis signals engagement and confidence. Modern English also favors conversational connectors such as actually, honestly, to be fair, and you know. These don't add information but add natural flow. Example, "Honestly, I didn't expect that result." Finally, confidence comes from predictability. If you prepare a few opinion structures, I tend to think, "What I've noticed is, in my experience, you'll never feel stuck." These reusable frameworks allow you to focus on meaning, not grammar. Natural English is not about complexity. It's about appropriateness, clarity, and emotional awareness. When learners master these elements, their daily conversations become smooth, modern, and memorable.
Daniel, many learners worry about grammar mistakes during daily conversations, which makes them nervous and silent. How should learners balance grammatical accuracy with fluency, especially in fast, real-life English conversations?
This is one of the most important mindset shifts in language learning, Emma. Grammar is a tool, not a test. In real-life conversations, fluency always comes before accuracy. From a linguistic perspective, spoken English relies heavily on simplified grammar. Native speakers frequently use contractions, ellipses, and incomplete sentences. For example, "Coming with us?" instead of "Are you coming with us?" "Sounds good," instead of "That sounds good to me." These are grammatically acceptable in spoken discourse because context fills the gaps. Learners often overfocus on tense accuracy. While tense matters, time markers often do the real work. Compare. "Yesterday I go to the meeting." Even with the incorrect past tense, the meaning is clear because of yesterday. Communication succeeds. A helpful concept here is error tolerance. Ask yourself, does this mistake block understanding? If the answer is no, move on. Fluency improves through momentum, not self-correction. That said, grammar should not be ignored. Instead of correcting everything, learners should focus on high-impact grammar, such as verb tenses, question forms, and prepositions used in common phrases. For example, interested in, good at, responsible for. These are collocations, and mastering them dramatically improves accuracy without slowing speech. Another strategy is delayed correction. Speak freely first, then review later. This mirrors how native speakers learn. During conversation, your goal is connection. During study time, your goal is precision. Confidence grows when learners redefine success. Success is not speaking perfectly. Success is being understood and responding naturally. Grammar supports communication, but courage creates it. When learners release the fear of mistakes, their English becomes faster, clearer, and more human. And that is the true goal of daily English conversations.
Daniel, let's talk about vocabulary in daily English conversations. Many learners memorize long word lists, yet when they speak, they repeat the same basic words like good, nice, or very. How can learners expand their vocabulary in a practical way and use more expressive modern English without sounding unnatural or forcing difficult words into conversation?
This is a very common situation, Emma, and it happens because learners confuse knowing words with using words. Memorizing vocabulary in isolation rarely transfers into fluent speech. What learners need instead is active vocabulary, not passive vocabulary. From a linguistic point of view, vocabulary becomes usable when it is connected to context, emotion, and function. For example, instead of learning the word excellent alone, learners should learn it in phrases such as, "That's an excellent point," or "You did an excellent job." These are lexical chunks, and they allow speakers to sound natural and confident. Let's address the overuse of basic words like very. In modern English, native speakers often replace very plus adjective with a stronger adjective. This is called intensification through adjective choice. For example, very good, excellent. Very tired, exhausted. Very angry, furious. This not only improves vocabulary but also makes speech more precise. Another powerful strategy is learning synonyms by situation, not by dictionary lists. At work, instead of always saying good, learners can say effective, helpful, productive, or successful. In social conversations, they might use fun, enjoyable, relaxing, or memorable. This is known as register-based vocabulary selection. Grammar also plays a role here. Learners should pay attention to collocations, which are words that naturally go together. Native speakers say, make a decision, heavy traffic, and strong opinion, not do a decision or powerful traffic. Using correct collocations immediately signals higher-level English. A practical daily exercise is word upgrading. After a conversation or message, review what you said and ask, which word was too basic? Then replace it with a more precise alternative. Over time, this trains your brain to choose better words automatically. Finally, learners should remember that expressive English is not about sounding intelligent. It's about sounding clear and appropriate. When vocabulary is learned through real sentences, real emotions, and real situations, it becomes natural. That's when English stops feeling like study and starts feeling like communication.
Daniel, one final challenge many learners face is maintaining conversations. They can answer questions, but they struggle to continue the discussion, ask follow-up questions, or keep the interaction alive. How can learners develop stronger conversational flow and sound more engaging in everyday English conversations?
This is an excellent topic to end on, Emma, because real fluency is interactive. Conversation is not just about answering, it's about building momentum. Many learners stop speaking because they believe they must produce something original or grammatically complex, which simply isn't true. The foundation of conversational flow is response expansion. Instead of giving short answers, learners should add one extra piece of information. For example, question, how was your weekend? Basic answer, good. Expanded answer, it was good. I spent most of it relaxing and catching up on some reading. This technique uses compound sentences and immediately invites further conversation. Another essential skill is asking open-ended follow-up questions. These often start with how, why, or what kind of. For example, how did you feel about that? What made you choose that? This shows interest and keeps the conversation balanced. Grammatically, these questions reinforce correct question structure, which is crucial in spoken English. Learners should also master conversation fillers and signaling phrases. These include, that reminds me of. Speaking of that, I had a similar experience. These phrases function as discourse markers, helping speech flow smoothly without awkward pauses. Listening is equally important. Active listening involves short responses such as, right, exactly, I see, which are known as back-channeling expressions. They don't interrupt but signal engagement and understanding, making conversations feel natural and friendly. Finally, confidence in conversation comes from predictability. Learners should prepare conversational frameworks like, what I like about it is. One challenge I've noticed is. These sentence starters reduce anxiety and allow the speaker to focus on ideas rather than grammar. Strong conversationalists are not those who speak the most, but those who connect ideas smoothly and show genuine interest. When learners shift their focus from perfect sentences to meaningful interaction, their English becomes engaging, fluid, and memorable.
Daniel, pronunciation and clarity are major concerns for English learners. Many learners feel that even when their grammar and vocabulary are correct, people still ask them to repeat themselves. In daily English conversations, how can learners improve clarity and pronunciation without trying to sound like a native speaker? What should they focus on to be understood easily and confidently?
This is a crucial topic, Emma, because clarity matters far more than accent. The goal of pronunciation is intelligibility, not imitation. Learners don't need to erase their accent. They need to speak in a way that listeners can easily understand. One of the most important elements is word stress. English is a stress-timed language, meaning some syllables are emphasized more than others. Misplacing stress can cause confusion even when individual sounds are correct. For example, the word record changes meaning depending on stress. Record, noun, versus record, verb. Learning correct word stress significantly improves clarity. Another key factor is sentence stress. Native speakers stress content words, nouns, main verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, while function words like to, of, for, and the are usually unstressed. Compare. I need the report by Monday. This rhythm helps listeners process meaning quickly. Learners who stress every word equally often sound unclear or robotic. Pronunciation problems also come from connected speech. In real conversation, words blend together. For example, what are you doing? Often becomes, whatcha doing? Learners don't need to speak this way, but they must recognize it to avoid confusion and respond naturally. Another practical focus is problem sounds, sounds that don't exist in the learner's native language, such as thin think or thin this. Instead of practicing all sounds, learners should identify their personal weak points and practice minimal pairs like think/sync or this/dis. This is targeted pronunciation training. Clarity is also affected by speech speed. Many learners speak too fast when nervous. Slowing down slightly and using pauses improves comprehension and confidence. Pauses are not mistakes. They are natural features of fluent speech. Finally, learners should practice shadowing, a technique where they repeat short audio clips immediately after hearing them. This improves rhythm, stress, and intonation all at once. Clear English is confident English. When learners focus on stress, rhythm, and intelligibility rather than accent perfection, their spoken English becomes stronger, more natural, and easier to understand in daily conversations.
Daniel, confidence plays a huge role in speaking English. Many learners know what to say but hesitate because they fear judgment or embarrassment. In daily conversations, how can learners build real speaking confidence and reduce anxiety while using English in public or professional situations?
This question goes beyond language, Emma. It's about psychology. Speaking confidence is not the result of perfect English. It's the result of repeated success in communication. One major problem is unrealistic expectations. Learners often believe they must speak without pauses or mistakes. In reality, even native speakers hesitate, self-correct, and rephrase. This is known as repair strategies, such as, I mean, let me rephrase that, or what I'm trying to say is. These phrases are not signs of weakness, they are signs of fluency. From a grammatical perspective, learners gain confidence by mastering high-frequency sentence patterns. For example, what I like about. The main reason is. One thing I've noticed is. These structures act as mental anchors, allowing speakers to focus on ideas rather than form. Another effective strategy is controlled exposure. Instead of jumping into complex discussions, learners should start with predictable situations, ordering food, introducing themselves, or giving opinions on familiar topics. Each successful interaction builds confidence and reduces anxiety. Confidence is also connected to body language and voice control. Speaking slightly louder, maintaining steady eye contact, and using clear pauses make speakers appear more confident, even if they feel nervous internally. The body often leads the mind. Learners should also reframe mistakes as feedback. Every correction or misunderstanding reveals what needs improvement. This is called a growth mindset, and it is essential for long-term progress. A powerful daily habit is self-talk in English. Speaking aloud when alone, describing your day, explaining your opinions, builds fluency without social pressure. This strengthens automatic language production. Ultimately, confidence grows when learners stop asking, "Is my English perfect?" and start asking, "Did my message work?" When communication becomes the goal, fear loses its power. English becomes a tool, not a test, and that is when true confidence appears.